Good, you?
I guess I pulled up. I'm still standing. I don't have any bullet holes in me yet. I guess I'm all right.
Well, that's the same for everybody, Although some of us have had bullet holes, they're shooting at us, but they're not hitting us yet. Good thing they don't have good aim, but...
Yeah, huh? Let's see.
What are you doing, Carlos, with your hat?
Can you test?
You look like they just let you out of a mental institution with that hat.
Yeah. My coffee. I need a coffee.
The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip. CJ to Mike.
I'm CJ.
There we go. And it is Friday in the Riv, and continuing our strategy of bringing people in and giving them time to express their opinions, not in a debate forum for 30 seconds or a minute. We have a city council candidate, our second one, and it gives me pleasure to introduce Michelle Dion. How are you,
Chip.
Michelle?
I'm very well. How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The format is pretty standardized now. What we try to do is give you a chance to introduce yourself and get into detail on some of the things you think are important, especially as a counselor. So if you want to give a little opening statement, or you want to just get to it, it's up to you. We'll let you kind of dictate how this thing goes.
Okay. My name is Michelle Dion, as Chip said. This is my second time running for city council. My reason for running for city council is I am not happy with the political climate. I think we can do better. I feel that the citizens in Fall River are, I don't know if I should use the word gypped, but I think we can work better and harder for them. I'm an advocate for affordable housing, community policing, public safety, campaign reform, and financial responsibility, to name a few.
Well, that's a pretty good net you cast out there. So, and we agree on a lot of things, and we talk about government, and there seems to be a misconception, because obviously, and we want you to really expand on this. A lot of people talk about the tenor, the decorum of the council, and that is problematic. We have said that both the mayor and Sean Kadim were out of line in what they did. They violated the decorum and the city council is a separate body. We're supposed to have checks and balances. And lively and very, very sometimes contentious debate is not a bad thing. That's something people really confuse. They think that you have to agree all the time, but actually if two parties disagree, sometimes you come to a consensus that's actually better than a vote. So as a counselor, and I understand what you're saying, that we can do better. How do you feel that we can do better?
Well, I believe that, as you said, positive change comes out of people having opposite views. You have to have the discussions, you have to have different ideas, you have to have different personalities involved, in my opinion. And we can create change that way. We have to be willing to disagree. We have to be willing to listen to one another and do what's best for the people in the city. In terms of, I always say to people that you can't, once you enter politics, I don't consider myself a politician, but I get it. Because I've entered politics, I'm a politician now. But am I a politician? Not at all. I'm a regular person. I don't know all the ins and the outs. I'm not, as far as that part goes. However, with that said, I kind of lost track of what I was going to say, but that.
You're not a politician.
That I'm not a politician. Exactly. Once you enter politics, unfortunately, you can't keep your personal life out of politics, but you certainly should be able to keep politics out of your personal life. You shouldn't drag in your everyday problems, your everyday issues. Leave that home. Address what you're there for. Be the city councilor you're supposed to be, and just address the needs of the community.
And I agree, and we have to be professional. We in everything. We have to be kind of like lawyers. You can go into the courtroom and duke it out all over a case, and then if you're friendly, you can go out and have lunch later. If you're not, you can just go your separate ways. But you can disagree without being disagreeable. And the keynote here is to have the best interests of the city at heart. And you talk about politicians. I'll give you a little something that John F. Kennedy said a long time ago. It's a long quote, but I'm gonna just shorten it. It's gonna be a paraphrase. He basically said, when you get into politics, you have a choice to become a politician or a statesman. If you're a politician, you do things for political gain. If you're a statesman, in his case, it was what was good for the nation. And I think that's a point I think that you were alluding to. And while we're on that, the good we see, and a problem that I see, and we talk to a lot of people, and obviously you know that, and you do too. We're out in the community a lot, and we talk a lot. And we've had we've had mayoral candidates on, we have other people on, and they talk about, it's always a problem about the economy in Fall River, about jobs and things. And I want to know how you feel about this, because, we brought in Amazon. We've brought in other facilities, but our employment rate doesn't change much. And I think that's reflective, and we've said this continuously on our show, that's reflective of the fact that we do not have the people in the city are not trained to get the jobs. If we look at Amazon, they've got 1,000 employees, and they've got about 20-something from Fall River. But the problem is that the focus is always on bringing businesses in rather than expanding our workforce and our ability to get jobs, because the economy, regardless of what they say, and it's proven in Fall River, we can't keep businesses open because people don't have money to spend. When they're working and they have a job, they can spend. So what's your perspective on how we can improve our economy without the panacea to everything lately has been just bring in a whole bunch of companies and we'll be good. But if you look at it closely, it hasn't worked.
No, that's true. That's true. And if you don't have the job base, you're right, you can't fill the positions. And I think part of the problem is probably for as long as we've had education in the city of Fall River, we haven't brought it to a level to bring up the work base. College is a great thing, and if you can go to college, and if you're a college material, that's wonderful, and you can get the expertise, and you can hold some of these high-paying jobs. But I think we also need more tradesmen. We've lost a lot of that. There was a time where we produced a lot more electricians, plumbers, etc. And even with some of these businesses opening up, you need those kind of people. And unfortunately, we have Diamond, which is a fabulous school, but I don't believe Diamond can accommodate the need. And not everybody is college bound, and not everybody has the capacity to go to college. I know with the new Durfee, we're going to have more trades in Durfee in addition to Diamond, which I think will be helpful. Years ago we had the pipe fitters. We had all different trades, and we've just lost that over time.
You're right, and that's the thing. Statistically, we read a statistic on a show back there. At 10 million jobs in the United States that are going unfilled, and they're not even trades jobs. They're just medium tech jobs that need apprenticeship programs or specific training. And as Rhode Island did a little while ago, if you remember, they had a welders program. They taught people how to weld, and they had a deal with Electric Boat. These people got facilities, and that's the problem. The workforce in Fall River right now cannot assume anything but marginal jobs. And when you bring in we are successful in bringing in these things like Amazon. we just don't get the full benefit of having an Amazon here because our workforce isn't prepared for it. And, you know, you're right. We need more technical education, but go ahead if you want to expand on it. But
And I was going to say, and in addition to that, I mean, it's all well and good, and it's great that the minimum wage has gone up, but I don't care what the minimum wage will ever be. A minimum wage is not sustainable. You cannot sustain life. You can't bring up children. It's just not. You have to do better than that. And again, that brings you back to the education factor, the technical factor, and training a workforce.
yeah. Well, we all know one thing, and that's one of the things. It's nice to hear you say that, because on a council we need a perspective based on reality, and sometimes we get these, these pie in the sky kind of we're gonna solve everything by bringing in a business, but the reality is, as you said, minimum wage jobs are always the last hired and first fired type of job. Or the jobs that high school kids get in McDonald's or something like that. They're not something you build a life on and build a career on.
Nope.
So that's a perspective, I think, that it's really necessary for us to refocus a lot on our workforce rather than just be fixated on a business. But there's some other issues, I'm sure. What's a really important issue to Michelle Dion as a counselor? I mean, if you've got a set of priorities, what do you really want to do as a city councilor?
Well, something I'm very concerned with is, and I mentioned the affordable housing. Okay, we know in Fall River we have our low-income housing, and now there's this big push, and we've expanded a lot on the market rate housing. Well, we have a very large group in the middle. And when I say affordable housing, we have people that are on fixed incomes. We have people who make moderate incomes. Many of them own their own homes. The problem is, their incomes aren't going to get any larger, and they're getting squeezed out. And to me, that's a very serious problem. I don't want to see people get squeezed out, because these people have probably been the rock and the foundation of this city for years. They're the ones who worked all their lives. They're the ones who have paid their bills, paid their taxes, and basically supported this city. And now they're the ones that have the chokehold. And I think that's something that I would like to see addressed. I don't know the answer to it, but I think we need to look into it, and again, if the railway truly does come, which it seems like it's going to, you're going to have more people for the market rate housing. You're going to have more people with expendable income, and the rates, everything is going to increase. And again, and these people are going to get further and further away from being able to maintain their homes. And a lot of these people worked hard all their lives, feeling they would have the security of their home when they were older. And it's slipping away from them, I think.
And I think that's an extremely good point. Obviously, that's a sensitive area for me since I'm on a retirement board. And a lot of people don't realize, and I've said it numerous times, but it can't be said enough, that a lot of people don't realize that the 60% of the municipal retirees in the city of Fall River are living on a pension of $25,000 or less. Now, and that segues into another important issue to it, because I have to deal with these people, and the most they can get is $360 as a COLA. So that doesn't even the increase in bread will exhaust that. So these incomes, they can't grow. They can't work overtime. They're elderly. They're sicker, and they're living on. And I think it's important. But that gets us to me, what's an important thing. Beginning to control government spending, beginning to control the taxes and fees, because that's one of the things, as you so accurately pointed out, many of these people worked their entire life. They were the foundation of our city, the backbone of our city. And they worked their whole life. They earned a living. They bought a home. And now they're looking at losing their homes because their income, they can't keep up with the taxes and fees. So as an advocate for the people of Fall River, are you going to be more focused on trying to control this seemingly endless increase in taxes and fees? Are we going to see something like the old adage of lean government and getting more with less from from you as a counselor? Are you going to be looking, because it seems that no matter what is proposed, there's no way around increases in taxes and fees. And I know that the current mayor has said he gave back this fee and that, but it's still in the budget. We're still paying for it. So ultimately, we have to begin to control the massive pay raises that have been given out, the massive stipends, all these fees that these people have to absorb. And I know people who are on the verge of losing their houses. It just can't continue. So what do you think about that?
I think realistically, I think people realize, obviously, we have to pay taxes. We're not going to get away from taxes. We're not going to get around it. Obviously, we do have to pay taxes. And if we're getting the services that we deserve, and we have, and when people see tangible results from their taxes, they're okay with that. I think I would like to bring out 3 points. The first would be, I believe it was 5 years ago, there was a department that at the end of the year had an $800,000 surplus in money. They put in a request to up the price of the commodity. It was granted, and I thought to myself, if we have an $800,000 surplus, doesn't that mean we charge too much this year? So why are we looking for more? So I think anytime we would run into that situation, it should be no. We're not going to give you more, not when you have an $800,000 surplus from this past year. So that would be one statement I would make. Another statement is, I believe, and I'm not going to get into all the dynamics of it, but let's take yard waste. Okay, so we're spending $270,000 a year to get rid of yard waste. Yard waste, ultimately, what happens to it? It gets processed, it gets turned into loam, correct?
Yep.
Why aren't we doing it ourselves? Why aren't we saving that $270,000, taking care of the yard waste ourselves, turning it into loam, so that not only would we create a savings now, but down the road, we'd save more money, because that loam is what we would use in the city when they're doing the trees, doing the islands, doing whatever. We wouldn't have to purchase the loam. So it would be a win-win on both ends. And it would be a reduction in an expense in the budget.
Well, very good point. I'm not sure if it's mulch or loom that they're turning it into, but maybe both. We have depending on the type of waste, obviously. But no, very good ideas. And I think the perspective of your first point is refreshing, because we've talked about it numerous times on this show, because we always contend that if we have excess money at the end of the year, we would be in charge too much in many cases. We understand how free cash is generated. Sometimes they don't fill positions, which is another issue. But I think a point that you made about if we're getting the result from our taxes, but I think that brings us to a set of priorities, because I think we're doing a lot of things in government that we don't really have to do. We're doing things, government to me is something the taxpayer is paying for public safety, for education, for trash pickup, for these essential services. And we have to kind of set up, and I don't see that priority list much in the city. It's always, it seems to be helter-skelter. That we, whatever the new idea is, everybody kind of latches on, and there's big debates. But it's about the priorities. Are we getting the adequate public safety, the adequate education? And after that, these things are discretionary. And when it comes to saving, whether it's going to be discretionary cash for the taxpayer, which I think will stimulate the economy far more, or some of these programs, and I'm glad you looked at that excess in that department, because to me that's the proper perspective for a city council, because a lot of people keep saying, well, the city council is always supposed to agree with the mayor, the city council is well, no, the city council is the legislative branch, and as you're supposed to look at how we spend our money. You're supposed to control it, and no matter what the mayor's, if they're a good idea, you support it. If it's a bad idea, you don't support it. And I think that perspective, as you looked into that department. And I don't know if anybody asked that question at the city council.
I don't believe so.
So kudos to you for that but I think that's what we need. We need to prioritize. We need to do this, and we need to be more effective. Which this program about, if we're doing this, the same thing goes with a lot of the things we do. Like, look how much we're paying for recycling. Can we look at some alternatives? There are a lot of things, but good. Now you had 3 points. What's your third point?
So my third point was, recently, if you remember, there was an issue at the courthouse. Well, first of all, I'd like to say I think having a Superior courthouse in the middle of a downtown is a little crazy. And it does bring in more negative elements, and obviously you're going to have problems. So my question is, who has jurisdiction over the courthouses? I don't believe it's the municipality. So when they're having problems, why are our taxpayers having to kick in another $200,000 for overtime? To me, I think the person who has the department who has jurisdiction, they should be supplying the proper policing at the courthouse. It shouldn't be on the taxpayers of this city to have to come up with that extra funding. So again, there's another $200,000 that could have been used for what?
That's an extremely good point. You bring up a very, very good point, because we all know that the 2.5 prop says that if the state imposes any kind of financial burden, they require you to do something, that they have to actually fund it. That we don't have to. So, as you said, if we have police officers, they should either be reimbursing us, but I don't know who's officially in charge of the courts, but they have court officers, and obviously there's not enough. But you're right. But that's you're looking at it closely, which is a good thing. Those are 3 very, very valid points, and what I like about those points is you're looking at ways to maximize our efficiency and reduce costs, and which is always good. Now, are there any? I mean, obviously we know the problem with crime in Fall River, with the drugs in Fall River, and you know that my background, and I have the utmost respect for the police department, because I worked with them very closely for many, many years. And we can't put a police officer on every corner. Nope. And because that is just financially, impossible. But the stigma that's attached to Fall River now, being said the most dangerous city in the state of Massachusetts, having the issues we have with trying to bring more. Not sharing the problem of the drug addiction. Fall River is going to be the warehouse for this. I mean, what is your perspective on these? Because these issues have a dramatic effect in and above the issue itself. It's about, when we have this rail coming down here, are we going to really have people come into Fall River when they read the paper and they say, wow, this place has got, they got terrible crime, they got terrible, they got terrible problems with drugs and stuff. Well, if I'm going to go down there and grab the rail, maybe I'll move to Somerset or Westport. So this is something as a counselor and as a citizen that we have to look at, because it's a very good point. If we can bring more people in who contribute to the economy, who have the ability to pay taxes, it's going to help all of us. So, I mean, what do you see as what do we have to do? Do you have any ideas on those issues? Because they're extremely important.
Well, I think as we raise our complement, which they're raising the complement and trying to get closer to the number that we should be at. I'm a firm believer in community policing. No, you're right. We can't have a policeman on every corner. However, years back, we had far more walking beats than we have now. And I think the more boots on the ground who are able to be in the communities, the safer the community becomes. They develop relationships with people. I believe they can keep a better pulse on the neighborhoods in the community when they're in the community mixing with the people. And I don't see, as we're raising the complement, why we can't do that.
Well, yeah, that's very good. And obviously the opioid crisis, we've discussed this at length. We've discussed this at length, and CJ testified in front of the country of Canada on drug addiction and stuff. So, but we've talked about it, and I don't have a problem with people getting the help that they need to get. But what disturbs me is when Fall River, nobody shares.
It's not a shared burden.
It's not a shared burden. And I see, and I have nothing against Star, but I don't believe in their expansion because, we do more than our fair share. And people say, well, you got to, well, we're not even taking care of our own because that's not the way the system works. Because if somebody needs treatment, they get sent to a facility that the next available bed. And if we have more beds, and Fall River people, and also I think we're only one of 2 facilities, or maybe the only, that gets the court ordered, the ones that have had obviously issues with criminality. So, I mean, I understand as a counselor you can't do a lot except maybe put forth an idea, but I've always said if we can share the lottery, and many of these rich cities and towns get a disproportionate share because they don't play the lottery as much. Why can't we share the burden and have regionalized treatment centers? And as a counselor, what would you do to kind of, not that you're going to adopt that idea, this is just something I just threw out because this has been my complaint for years. But I mean, what would you do along those lines to try to kind of, stop the influx, give the treatment that's needed, but let's push to not let. We always get the negative stuff. We always get the people shipped over into our projects and housing. They don't give us their best and brightest. They give us their worst, and we know that. And the drug problem and the influx of these people, because most of them stay here afterwards.
Correct.
So because obviously this is an environment that they like because there's a lot of drugs here, and we know that, and it's a problem. But what would you do as a counselor to kind of, there's only so much we can do, but we can push our state delegation, we can push things.
Well, it seems that in certain categories at least, there seems to be no problem with putting caps on things. Well, why can't we put caps on everything? Why can't we say, why can't we advocate for, okay, listen, a municipality of this size should be able to help X number of people. You reach your cap, that's the cap. Now you have no choice but to go to another area or another town. I mean, I don't know if that's the answer, but I don't see why we can't put a cap on things. We put a cap on liquor licenses. We put a cap on how many low-income, now at least we seem to, apartments. Because even that, we ran into the problem with that too. We did it for the whole, I swear, Bristol County. That shouldn't have been. There should be a cap. This is the limit. This is what this community can sustain. Because the problem is when you have 30% of the people always taking care of 100%, it puts you in poverty.
Oh yeah, and you're 100% right. But we're running short of time, so I want you to wrap it up and tell everybody why they should vote for Michelle Dion for City Council. Besides what you just said, which I think you articulated your positions very well. So
thank you very much. I ask for your vote on November 5th because I would like to say that I truly am doing this for the right reasons. I am not afraid to vote yes on the good things and no on things that I don't agree with. I would like to see, even, as I said, some campaign reform. I think that there should be a limit as to the amount of money anybody can spend on a campaign, which would put people on a more level playing field and force people to get back to more of a grassroots type of campaigning, so that they'd be out in the community more, meeting people. I think social media is not the way to do it. You need to be hands-on, face-to-face. And I think we just have a lot of work to do, and we just need to get back to the basics and having the discussions. And I would like the opportunity to be able to do that for the community of Fall River.
CJ, what do we got for time here? Is he sleeping in there? CJ. Well, thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Would you like that?
We may